Well, hello everyone. I'm going to be running two projects side by side here. One is going to be the folding knife that is going to be based on this fixed blade knife that I told you guys about in one of my other videos. I'm going to make a couple of small changes to this. One, I want to make it a little more compact width-wise. I want to narrow it up so it fits on 1¼ inch stock. And another thing is I want to lengthen the handle just a little bit so it more comfortably fits the hand. And I think it'll be a pretty nice little compact knife. I wouldn't call it a pocket knife, but it will be a folder that will come with a pouch style sheath to go on your belt. So anyway, that's going to come, and this one is going to be a fixed blade knife version. What I've done is I've taken all the little different models and patterns that I have over there, and I've selected what I think are my favorites and which ones people seem to have liked the best. And this is one of them. This is a simple design. It's very efficient. It's a drop point, obviously. And there are going to be two versions of this knife offered. One is just going to have a simple stainless cross guard here, bolsters if you will, because the guard on this knife is actually this finger hump here that is designed to catch your middle finger while you're holding it, and then this is just to grip for control. The cutting edge is going to start up here and go forward. And I want to offer this in two finishes, with or without, but one is just going to be a polished finish, and then the other one I'm really eager to try rust bluing. And to do rust bluing I've got to use O1 stock or something similar. I can't use a stainless grade because it just won't take the rust bluing, but I think that a rust blue finish is going to be something nice that you don't see a lot of knives finished in rust bluing, but you do see a lot of firearms finished that way. And a nice well applied rust blue is a beautiful finish to look at and to enjoy, with some really nice walnut grips or maple or just whatever kind of wood. So we'll be making the first one I want to try is the rust blue. So we're going to get started. Step one is you get your pattern set out and you select a piece of stock. And this is 1/8 oversized, so it'll finish down after grinding and heat treatment and all that. It'll finish out to just about exactly 1/8 of an inch thick. And I'm just going to take something flat here and put your knife and your pattern on there. And I didn't leave any extra. This knife exactly fits onto this piece of steel with just nothing left over. And then you just want to clamp the two together. And so they stay clamped until everything is transferred. The holes, the outline. I'm just going to take a scribe and go around all that, and I'll take a transfer punch and mark where my holes are going to go. And if this is going to be the version with the guard, then the guard will pin in here. And if it's going to be a version with the all wood grips, the wood will extend up and just kind of round out. So I'll come back after we've got this marked out, and we'll go over to the bandsaw and profile this. Alright, so there we are after the profile is transferred and the holes. And then I just took a regular center punch and I deepened all of these. These are going to be drilled one size under 1/8 and then reamed to 1/8. This one back here, this is for the lanyard or thong, so it's going to be drilled out 1/4 inch, reamed to 1/4, drilled one size under always, and then reamed to your final size. So I'm going to take it to my bandsaw, cut off this excess steel. And I won't show that because it's just bandsawing metal. And then I will come back when I'm actually over on the grinder, just profiling this. Okay, the grinding out, I've got it sawn down pretty close. And I hogged this metal off with a pretty rough. This is a 50 grit belt, and I'm just going to use it. I won't get down to the layout line with this belt. I'm just doing that to get these chunks of metal out of my way, so then I can finish in. I'll go to the layout line and take that off with a well-worn 80 grit, so I'll get a nice smooth finish that I can scribe my cut lines to, or my bevel guide is actually what it is. So I'm going to move the camera back, keep it away from this grinding dust a little bit, and then I'll zoom back in when I'm grinding. Now I'm going to switch to an 80 and get it down just so your layout line disappears and stop. You're at your pattern dimensions then. Right now we're still oversized. Alright, as I said, this is a well-worn 80 grit. I'm not quick to throw those away because they're always good for this kind of stuff when you want a finer finish than a regular 80 grit would give you. Now I'm just going to carefully work this in so I see that layout line just disappear, and then I stop and I go to another part. You got to keep your touch light, or you'll take out too much. So I want to bend that around the corner of my platen. So I'm going to drift my belt over like you see it moving. And this platen is made of porcelain. I discovered a long time ago that the metal platens, they wear out too fast, and the graphite platens, they do the same thing. And this porcelain, I've had this same porcelain platen on this thing, and I've ground a lot of steel on this 6 years now. And it's slick and straight, and it doesn't wear out. So. And I made the platen out of a piece of nice flat porcelain tile that I sawed into 2-inch strips, so I have replacements, although I don't think I'm ever going to need them. I'm turning the camera off between scenes because to turn this grinder off, I have to reach all in front of the camera. So anyway, the lines had just winked out. And I've got some pretty heavy-duty reading glasses on, and if it's something real intricate, I'll wear an optivisor when I do this. But the layout lines had just disappeared, and it's real important, at least in my procedure, to get this as close to that pattern as you possibly can, because you've already center punched your holes, so you're kind of committed to them. I mean, you can move them a little bit, but why? Just take your time and do it carefully. So now I'm going to move over to, and I do this on the milling machine only because I can slow that milling machine down to 76 RPM and run my little reamers through here after I drill my holes. So we'll come back over there. Before I move over, there is one step I want to show you. Since we've done some grinding, it's all been going that way. There's going to be a burr around the outside perimeter, and that may throw us off being flat over on the mill when we drill this stuff. Just a little lightly. All I do is just lightly grind the flat. I mean lightly. The only pressure is that thumb. Just so your burrs disappear. And we'll do this again after we drill our holes, because there will be a burr on the outside of the hole, the direction of the drill. And now we're going over to the mill. I'm going to try to do this and keep my arm out of your face. Quiet little mill too. Alright, and then just go easy through it. Move over to the next one and on down the line. I just let it kind of float, find its center, and then just slowly go down through. And I've got a lot of oil piled up around the hole, so I'll withdraw, and that lets a little oil flow in. Just using high sulfur cutting oil. Alright, I went over there and went ahead and drilled that one size under a 1/4 inch. I'm ready for reaming. And when I say one size under on these rather small reamers, I'm not talking about on the fractional index over there. I look on my equivalent chart and I get the number or letter drill that is just one step under. There's some metric bits there. There's some metric sizes in there in between, but I generally only leave that reamer about 1,000 to 1,000.5 to remove because it's light stuff. So once again, and then I took it over to the grinder. I deburred everything, and I just kissed every hole with a countersink. So I want these pins to go through here and not be able to wobble back and forth. They're going to hold the liners on nice and straight, or not the liners. Well, no matter what they're holding, it needs to stay referenced straight. So these have to be perpendicular, one, and they have to be right on size, two. So I got my speed set at about 160, which lets this reamer do a good job, doesn't put a lot of stress on it. And plus, as I said, I took a lot of the metal out of here. So yeah, we're getting a nice ream. Just go down slowly, one at a time. Yeah, there's no strain at all in that reamer. So we're going to change up. I got to raise up the column a little bit, and we'll ream this 1/4 inch. And I keep this at that same slow speed, and I've knocked all the chips off. Just want to make sure everything's going to clear. Just keep that registered nice and flat on those vise jaws, and I know I'll stay perpendicular. And then just slowly down through. And slowly back out. That's it. And I'm going to go clean all the oil off of this thing and see you over at the bench. I made sure that this radius and this radius match this radius. There's one less little tool change you have to do, and that's 2 inch there, so it's a 1 inch radius, and it doesn't feel bad against your fingers. So, all right, I just want to true up and get some of the factory grind off this, and I want to get it flat. So we're just about ready now. Start other layout, which is the cutting edge. Okay, I want to leave still a little oversized, about 15 thousandths, which is fine. It's flat, but I want to leave 50 thousandths between my lines to taper down to the cutting edge from that point. So I set my height gauge accordingly. 46 thousandths. There we go. Alright, so there, this thing does never zoom in and stay focused. Let's see. There we go. There's our cutting edge. Everything to the left and right of those two lines gets taken away. Okay, what I'm going to use for handles on this knife is some Claro walnut with a little bit of burl in it that I sawed off of a larger chunk. Then I did that little treatment with the vacuum pump and the hardening stabilizing quote solution, but that is nice and dry, and that's what it looks like after it dries out of the process. So this isn't going to distort nearly as easy or soak in any moisture like an untreated or simply oiled piece of wood's going to do. This is nice stuff, and to demonstrate that, this is a piece, all I did was lay it flat on my belt sander to keep it on the flat platen, and went up. That is 120 sanding right there. No other finish. In fact, you can still see some marks on it from where I milled it off the chunk. But I dressed up the other side too, and I'm just now trying to decide which side I want out. But it's pretty, I think, however you look at it. But I'll get the other one to this point, and then I'll choose my sides and my outsides. We're up to a 400 grit finish on this so far. That's really as fine as we're going to make it, because we're going to rust blue this knife blade. So it would defeat the purpose of certainly putting a mirror polish on there, and you don't really want to go too much finer than 400 for rust bluing. And I've rust blued guns in the past, and I've always liked the results, so I was just curious as to how a rust blued knife blade would work with the walnut handles that we're going to use. So the last thing I'm going to do before heat treatment is, I'm not going to rely just on me thinking that I've got all the scratches out from the coarser grits. So at this point, I just take a Sharpie, and all the areas that are going to be exposed, say from about there forward, I color in with the Sharpie. I go back over. As soon as this dries, I go back over, and then I'm going to run it over that same 400 grit belt very carefully. One pass, and any deep scratches are now going to show up as lines. So we want to get those out before heat treatment, certainly, because it's a lot harder to get this stuff worked down after heat treatment. And so after I'm satisfied that I have all my deep scratches out after we skim this, the next step is going to be heat treatment. And we'll get it out of the furnace, go back to that 400 grit belt, go over the knife again to clean it up, and then we're going to put a logo on it, and we're going to go nice and deep with it, with the DC current, and then we're going to rust blue this knife blade. So rust bluing, the first thing you're going to need is steel that will rust. Stainless grades are not a good candidate. Well, they're not a candidate at all for rust bluing. And if anything makes O1 tool steel less than ideal for knife blades is the fact that it will rust. But if you take care of it as you would a good firearm, then you're not going to have any trouble. I have a couple of knives that I ground several years ago that have been through many deer. In fact, this one This knife has been through 4 white-tailed deer that I know of, and I skinned a couple out since I got the knife back, and there's no rust, no pitting. It's just all about taking care of it. So it can be done. Because I just ran this over that 400 grit belt, and it's showing me just a few areas. These are low spots here, and a little bit here, and right about in here. So you just keep lightly moving this back and forth, working these areas until they just slowly disappear, and then you're ready for heat treatment. But this is an important little step, just to check yourself. We'll do this side, and I'm sure I'll find similar areas on this side, but it probably won't take longer than a couple of minutes to work this stuff out. Keep your touch light, don't dig any holes, and just step by step. So that's all we're going to do. It's ready for heat treatment. I've gotten all those little low areas out of there, and I know that there isn't going to be anything showing up to haunt me after heat treatment. So we'll see it again when it comes out of the furnace into the plunge, and then after draw, we'll clean up. We're going to cut our logo nice and deeply into here, and then we're going to rust blue, and I'll take you through that process, at least one application, just so you can see the different steps. And you just have to be careful primarily with grease. Everything has to be degreased, and I'm going to be wearing gloves so my fingers won't spoil the process, because any oil on this blade is going to turn into a blotchy rust blue finish.